Welcome back to the show. Today I want to share some thoughts with you on another way. Let me share a quick story in the beginning. Back in 2006, we had 6 young kids in our house. At the time, it was a 4-bedroom house, and it seemed to be shrinking. We brought more children into our lives, and with each child that we brought into our family, it was getting a little tighter. It was getting louder in a relatively small square footage footprint. So one day I was talking to a guy. We had some siding done and some windows, and we were putting a back porch awning behind our house. And one of the guys that was helping us do that, his name is Bob Thomas. And Bob and I were talking, and he said, I see that you have a lot of kids, 6 kids, and the house is getting a little tight. Have you ever thought about building a house? And I said, wait a minute, Bob. I know at the time my income was pretty good, and I said, I don't think we could afford a house that would be big enough for us to have a large enough square footage for 6 kids. Because if I was going to build a house, I would want all of our kids to have their own bedrooms. So that would make it a 7-bedroom house, right? So just so you know, I come from the South Baltimore, Maryland, low income, didn't have a whole lot. I can remember as a kid, there wasn't a whole lot in the refrigerator and freezer for an extended period of years. So I grew up in that environment where my thinking was poor thinking. So I can remember that day we were up in our boys' bedroom at the time, and he says, why don't you think about building a house? I said, Bob, I can't possibly afford to build a house. I know, like I said, my income's okay, but the house that size, there's just no way. So we got talking more and more. He says, why don't you just go look into it? Longer story short, I started looking into it, started pricing it, started looking at land. Even a longer story short, we were able to build a 7-bedroom house for probably, on 6.5 acres, by the way, 7-bedroom house on 6.5 acres of ground for about $300,000 to $400,000 less than buying a pre-built existing house. The point of sharing that story is that I had to get my mind outside of that South Baltimore mindset that we couldn't possibly accomplish that goal of building a house that size for our kids. So the point of the text of this theme here today in this show is another way. If you and I have the mindset that there is always another way to get something done, more times than not, you and I will be able to achieve something that is beyond our wildest expectations. There's an ancient story that I'm going to paraphrase for you in the book of Proverbs. It says, quote, take a lesson from the ants, you lazy fellow. Learn from their ways and be wise. For though they have no king to make them work, yet they labor hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. But all you do is sleep. When will you wake up? Let me sleep a little longer, sure, just a little more. As you sleep, it says, poverty creeps upon you like a robber and destroys you, and want attacks you in full armor. The point of the story is, if you just look at little ants, that they don't worry about peer pressure. I know they have little tiny ant brains. I get that for sure. We have big human brains. I understand that too. But they don't worry about the distractions of what other ants are doing. They work all the time. They plan for winter all summer. Think about that a second. They plan for winter all summer long. Should that be an example for you and I, that we should plan for the lean times during the good times? Should we do the things that maybe we don't feel like doing, even though we need to do them? Thomas Edison said one time, he said, many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Again, many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. One day in June 2015, our daughter Juliana said, "You gotta find a way, another way around your problem." Again, you gotta find another way around your problem. Do you know how hard it is for some of us to have this mental block that there is no other way around our problem or our challenge, when I think more times than not, some of the smartest, richest, most successful people are always looking for other ways, other detours, if you will, to get around some of the darkest times and the most difficult times they have in their own life. Again, Juliana said, you gotta find another way around your problem. And by the way, I have that quote as my screensaver on my laptop, just to remind myself that I've gotta find another way around my problems. H.G. Wells said, if you fell down yesterday, stand up today. Think about that a minute. If you fell down yesterday, stand up today. I would suggest to you that a lot of people who have fallen on their faces have chosen, by default, to stay down for a very long period of time, and sometimes for a lifetime. They've fallen on their faces, and they haven't gotten back up. Maybe they've fallen on their faces, they got up for a short time, fell on their face again, and they've stayed down. Seth Godin, if you've ever read books, or if you ever want to read a good book, or a series of books, or by a good author, his name is Seth, S-E-T-H, Godin, G-O-D-I-N, Seth Godin. He said, the tragedy of small expectations and the trap of false dreams. He said, ask 100 students at Harvard Business School if they expect to be up for a good job when they graduate, and all of them will say yes. Ask a bright 10-year-old girl if she expects to have a chance at a career as a math genius, and the odds are that she's already been brainwashed into saying no. Expectations, he writes, aren't guarantees. But expectations give us the chance to act as if, to trade now for later, to invest in hard work and the productive dreaming on our way to making an impact. Seth Godin ends this quote by saying, expectations work for two reasons. First, they give us the enthusiasm and confidence to do the hard work. And second, like a placebo, a sugar pill, they subtly change our attitude and give us the resilience to make it through the rough spots, eventually gives us the energy to persist. Eventually, in quotes, he writes, gives us the energy to persist. James Michener, the great author, said, character consists of what you do on the third and fourth tries. Again, character consists of what you do on the third and fourth tries. I would say that the majority of your growth comes from when you attempt something 3, 4, 5, 10, 50, 100, 500 times.